Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you all about the debut record of the Finnish power metal band Metal de Facto, Imperium Romanum, out November 22nd on Rotshot Records. This album has 10 tracks and is 52 minutes in length. Now, the overall concept behind this album, as the name on the album indicates, is the Roman Empire. This is a record that has a very loose bass concept. It's not one of those that has a story that starts with the first song, finishes with the last song. This is more of a loose bass concept surrounding that Roman Empire, that time frame, that time period, where they took each single song to talk about a different story, a different character, a different activity that went on during that time period. I really like that because that is not only reflected on the lyrics of the record, but is also reflected on the music on the record. Definitely the lyrics play the biggest role in getting this concept to life, but I felt that they also created songs that incorporated certain dynamics, certain sounds that really allow the album to have that time period stamp. Overall, the album really has to be broken down into three main components. Album structure, sound, and vocals. To me, these are the main three driving forces behind this record. Starting off with the structure, I felt listening to this album that the album had really an old school structure to it. The songs have very unique and individual structures to them, but then when you look at the overall structure of the album has an old school structure with new school individual structured tracks. So the overall structure of this album is a simple one. It starts off really powerful, really pungent. You really feel like you're climbing a mountain at a high speed. Then there's a certain dip where you get a ballad called Echoes in Eternity, an absolutely magnificent stripped down ballad. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. Followed by that ballad, you get an instrumental track called Colosseum that has a lot of dynamic, and it allows the albums to start to pick up some intensity again as it approaches the last portion of the record. So this is an album that peaks, dips in the middle with that ballad, has the instrumental track right after. The instrumental track allows the album to start to pick up intensity again to finish it off on a very strong note. To me, this is a typical old school album structure, and they incorporated that into this album, and to me that's a great throwback feel that this album has. The overall sound of the record is also one of old school power metal, so it really matches well with the overall structure of the album. Having said that, there are some new nuances, new power metal nuances within their sound. So even though the roots are definitely old school power metal roots, you feel a lot of Halloween, a lot of Blind Guardian elements, a lot of influences from those two bands present on this record. The record doesn't sound necessarily dated. It has a new sound to it. It has a new approach. It just has its roots in the past on a sound level and on a structural level. So to me, this is a record that's really well balanced from those two angles as far as the structure and the sound, in terms of incorporating old school elements with more modern sounding elements. One of those more modern sounding elements is the use of the keyboards. A lot of bands now allow themselves to be dictated by the melody of the keyboards and the synthesizer, and allowing that to be the driving force of the record. I didn't feel like they did this on this album. They have a keyboard player. Benji is the keyboard player on this band. And to me, if you're going to use keyboard elements, and if you're going to use them a lot, you need to have a keyboard player. To me, that's absolutely fundamental, because it really translates to the live sound, and it really allows the live sound to be more captivating versus using backing tracks. So I like the fact that they have a real keyboard player on this album to really give life to those melodies. Now, those melodies are definitely not the driving force on this record. I really feel like this album is all about the vocals and the guitar and the guitars. Those two elements are really the drivers of the album, are really the things that are pushing you forward. The keyboard melodies are there to give a little bit of nuance to the song, to give a little bit of more melody, to give a little bit more of atmosphere to certain tracks. I like the fact that they used them, they did not abuse them, they didn't allow that to be the dictating force behind the record. They really allowed the record to have that old school feel, where the vocals and guitars are the main factors. Everything else is there to really enhance those two more specific elements. So I really like that aspect. Going into vocals, I have to say, Mikel Salo really showcases all of his talent on this record. Absolutely phenomenal. His range is on full display from the first to the last song. He really galvanizes the tracks. He really brings the songs to life. And his voice gives the perfect balance to the tracks, to the songs, and it really allows the songs to shine on this whole record. I was absolutely floored with some of the things that he was able to do and some of the changes, because you have songs on this album that have very dynamic feels to it that are very independent from each other. It's not like the first song sounds exactly the same as the last song. Every single song has its own idea, its own dynamic, its own feel, and he's able to capture that feel, that emotion that each song has, depending on the overall sound of the track and depending obviously on the lyrics of the track. And he's able to slightly change little nuances within his vocal approach to really enhance each specific song, knowing exactly when to go over the top, when to be a little bit more stripped down, when to be a little bit more contained, if you will. And that to me allows the record to be really well balanced vocally. I also like the fact that they used choirs and backing vocals to really give some of the songs a little bit more thickness, a little bit more volume, to make them a little bit more powerful, because his voice is so melodic. A lot of the sound on this album is so melodic that at certain tracks you really need to create a little bit more volume without making the album necessarily super heavy. A perfect way of doing that is adding backing vocals, is adding choirs that really allows the songs to feel like they have a little bit more thickness to it, that they just have a lot more power, that they just become a lot larger than what they really are. So I really like that. I like the use, not only how he used his vocals, but I like the complement of those backing vocals on a lot of the tracks that just add a different element to the overall sound that this record has. This is an awesome debut album. This album will, without a shadow of a doubt, put these guys on the map. This is a band that, in my opinion, has a tremendous amount of potential. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they will always maximize those strengths and minimize those weaknesses. That is, to me, absolutely obvious with this debut record. Now, as far as songs are concerned, I picked 3 songs that, in my opinion, really offer an overall spectrum of what you're going to get from this album. I want to start off with Legionnaires Oath. It's the second song on the album. It's your typical power metal hymn. It just has all of those components. It's just a great overall track. It's a track that has a great guitar riff, great melody. The chorus sounds very powerful. It's one of those where they use those vocal layers. It just adds a lot of volume to it. It has a really melodic and catchy chorus that is also helpful. It makes the song a lot more memorable. As the song moves into the solo absolutely captures the overall melody that this track has. It's almost like the solo encapsulates that melody and then it explodes it into the track. I really like how they did that. They really expanded that melody with the solo, allowing the song to become even more melodic, even more powerful, more driven. Closing with a call to arms in the choir that answers. So it's like Salo says one line and the choir replies with another line. It really makes this into a hymn. It allows the song to finish on that note, almost a battle hymn note, which matches perfectly well with the content, the lyrical content of the track, and the overall mood and atmosphere that the song has. So this is a perfect way of closing a track that bring it all together, make it a lot more memorable, a lot more noticeable. Next is Naturalis Historia. Great tempo to this song. It's a lot more fast moving track, one of those that really just never slows down. It doesn't matter if it's the verses, if it's the chorus, it just never stops. It just has a great momentum from the moment it starts all the way to the end. Great vocal performance on this track by Michael Salo. The addition of some backing vocals throughout the track really gave the song volume. His voice is very melodic, but at the same time is very naked. So by adding those vocal tracks, those backing vocal tracks sporadically throughout the song, really allowed the overall volume of the vocals to sound a little bit bigger, to sound that it had a lot more volume. The amount of bass, this is one of the components I really liked about this track, was the amount of bass that pops in specifically during the guitar solos. Not very common to see that, but I was able to really pick up the amount of bass that just really comes across. You can really hear it coming across during the guitar solos. It gives that specific stretch of the song a very unique sound, really cool, really well done, and then the song comes back to the chorus in order to close it off. Perfect balanced track. Last but not least, Echoes in Eternity, the ballad on the record. If you're going to put a power metal album together, you have to include a ballad. They included Echoes in Eternity right in the middle of the album. Allows for that dip in the middle. Like I said before, a very old school structure feel to it. I love this ballad. I love it because it's stripped down all the way through. There are some moments where it picks up a little bit more intensity, picks up a little bit more volume, specifically coming from the guitars. But overall, this is a very naked, a very powerful, but naked, stripped down ballad. The vocals, in my opinion, are really the force, are really the lifeline, are really the heartbeat of this song that really carries not only the track, but it carries the emotion that the song has built within itself. The melody of this song is absolutely phenomenal, is delightful. It gives you, goosebumps. It's just a very powerful, emotionally driven track. The acoustic guitar solo, in my opinion, fits this song perfectly because the song is very stripped down. It has that acoustic feel to it. You really need to go with that same style approach for the solo in order for the song to not feel disconnected, to not feel like it's broken. So that to me allows the song to have a sense of continuity, and it allows the song to become even more melodic, even more beautiful, even more magnetizing. The closing vocals on this song are really interesting as well because they did a little bit of merger of vocals. They added vocal lines that just kind of merge and blend one with the other. It allows Salo's voice to sound a lot bigger. It almost gives you a feeling there's multiples of him because they're using his voice, but they're using it on different vocal tracks, and then they're kind of merging them and they're superimposing them. So that gives a little bit of more volume. It makes him sound a lot bigger. It makes him sound almost heavier. The main factor of this song is the simplicity. Very simple approach, very simple structure, and in the simplicity that the song has, that's where the beauty is. The beauty is in how simple and how magnificent this song is. Alright guys, this is it. This is Metal De Facto's debut record, Imperium Romanum, out November 22nd on Rotshot Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, what your expectations are, anything you want to know, put that in the comment section below. I'll be reading those as always and getting back to you. Take care guys.